Today I'm putting my creativity to the test. I challenged myself to create 4 beautiful fall DIYs using Amazon packaging as my main craft supply. Can something most of us throw away become high-end fall decor? Let's find out. One of my favorite things about crafting is finding creative ways to give everyday items a second life, and this Amazon packaging is the perfect place to start. Once we have the inside layer of our packaging, I'm going to paint a section with my Waverly chalk paint in plaster to create a nice base. Now while that is drying, I'm going to just cut off any of the excess paper. Once that is completely dry, I'll add a coat of the matte Mod Podge and let that dry as well. Taking a little extra time here really helps create a smooth surface for our napkin. Now while that is drying, I'm going to prep my napkin. This napkin I did get from HomeGoods, and I absolutely love how beautiful this print is with the blue and the white. And to prep my napkin, I am just removing the back 2 layers of the napkin. And I'm using a little piece of painter's tape to help me pull that apart. Once it's ready, I'll place it over the dry Mod Podge and cover it with some parchment paper. Now I'm going to grab my hot iron and iron that down into place. This is one of my favorite decoupage techniques because it helps create a beautiful wrinkle-free finish. And now to protect the design, I'm sealing everything in with another coat of Mod Podge. And now that all of that is sealed, we're going to flip our page over here, and I'm going to take a leaf, and this is just one of those wood leaves that I found at the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to use it to trace it on the back side. Now let's go ahead and just carefully cut out our leaf. With the leaf finished, I'm setting it aside so I can create a little texture for the background. I'm taking another piece of the Amazon packaging, crumbling it into a ball, and then opening it back up. Those natural wrinkles will add so much character and give the finishing piece a unique look. I'm lightly going to dry brush my Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster over the raised areas. This will soften it up and make all of that wonderful texture show through. Now let's put this all together. I have this frame that I found at the Dollar Tree, and we're going to deconstruct it. I'm going to be using the insert from this frame as my guide to make it easy to cut out the background for the perfect size. Now it's time to bring everything together. I'm adding some matte Mod Podge to the back side of my leaf. Now I'm going to place that on top of the textured background, and then we're going to wait for that to dry. And now that our piece has dried, we're going to insert this inside of our frame. And I just love how this turns out. It's soft, elegant, and hard to believe it all started out as an Amazon package. And if you enjoyed this craft, drop a leaf emoji down in the comments below. Thank you! It's always fun to see how something as simple as an Amazon envelope can be transformed into beautiful seasonal decor. For this project, I'm using the paper from the envelope to create lots of texture and a cozy fall look. I'm starting out by crumbling the paper into a ball. Once I open it back up, all of those wonderful wrinkles are exactly what I'm looking for. They add so much character and make this project feel a little more cozy. And to bring in some more color, I'm going to paint one of these sheets with my Waverly chalk paint in the color blue. When we're painting it, we are doing more of a dry brush. You want to see those wrinkles and a little bit of the packaging behind it. Then we're going to repeat these same steps, and we're going to be using the Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster. And once the paint dries, we'll be ready for the next step. For the base, I'm going to be using one of these inexpensive pumpkins from the Dollar Tree. After removing the top embellishment, I am left with the perfect blank canvas. I like to widen the opening just a little bit with a pencil to make it a little easier to tuck those paper strips into place. Now I'm going to cut the painted paper into strips. They don't have to be perfectly straight, and mine are just under about an inch wide. Sometimes these little imperfections are what make these handmade projects so beautiful. It's time to bring everything together. It starts with the plaster strip, tucking it into the top opening at the top of the pumpkin. Then we're going to wrap it around and secure it underneath with a hot glue. From there, I'm going to go ahead and alternate between the plaster and the blue strips all the way around the pumpkin. As each strip is added, you can really start to see the pumpkin take a whole new look. I'd love to know, would you decorate with a pumpkin like this one in your home? Let me know down in the comments below. I always enjoy hearing about everybody's styles for the fall decor. With this pumpkin covered, it is time to add a stem. I'm using one of the small wooden pegs from the Dollar Tree. You could get them in a 4-pack, but there's a lot of good alternatives if you can't find them. A cork, wooden bead, or a small stick from the yard would all work beautifully. And what you see me doing here is I'm just rubbing a little bit of my antique wax from Waverly onto this little peg. This is just going to stain it a light brown color, which I feel works really nicely with our pumpkin. And when I'm adding this peg into our pumpkin, I'm going to use a little bit of hot glue to make sure everything stays into place. To give the pumpkin more personality, I'm taking one of the leftover paper strips and I'm going to twist it tightly. And we're going to get these little spiral pieces here. Next, we're going to take those little twisted pieces of paper and I'm going to wrap it around a pencil to create a curly vine. It's such a simple detail, but it adds so much charm while making a good use of every last bit of the Amazon packaging. I am also adding this sweet little flower that I made using some leftover Amazon packaging. I'll be sharing exactly how I create this in another project later in the video, and I think it'll help finish this pumpkin perfectly. I just love how this little pumpkin turns out. The soft blues and the plaster stripes, the textured paper, and those handmade finishes make this little Dollar Tree pumpkin look absolutely stunning. It's another reminder that with a little creativity, everyday material can become something truly beautiful. It's amazing how a simple Amazon envelope can become something beautiful for your fall decor. For this project, I'm using the inside of the envelope because it has nothing on it and it's a great surface to start our design. I'm going to be using Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster, a small sponge, and a beautiful floral and leaf stencil from Amazon. And to use this stencil, we're just going to go ahead and lay this on top of our piece. It is self-adhesive and is washable, so after we're done using it, we can just wash it and reuse it again. I love how this pattern adds just the right amount of detail while still letting the natural texture of the envelope show through. And if you're interested in this stencil, I'll leave a link for it down in my description box below. Now we're just going to repeat the same steps on the other side of this envelope here, and so we have a whole nice panel of stenciling. Now while we have a moment, I want to tell you all about the playlist I'm a part of, DIY Inspiration. And for this month, everything is about fall inspiration. My co-host is Loli at Loli D's Creations, and our guest host is Joy at Joyful Designs. Both of these ladies are linked down in my description box below, as well as this fun playlist where there are so many other creators doing fall DIYs. So please check them out, give them some love, and let them know I sent you. Now back to our video. Now, once everything has dried, we're going to flip our page over here, and I'm going to be using some multi-surface, and it says coffee latte color, and it's almost the same color as our mailer. We're just going to go ahead, add some paint, and paint this. And then I'm going to repeat the same steps with the stencil on the back side. This is going to be the back side of our garland, but I didn't want any of that packaging to show, so I wanted it to look good on both sides. Once the paint is dry, I'm going to be tracing my leaf pattern right over the stencil design. Then we're going to cut out 4 of these leaves. And I don't like to waste that pretty pattern, so I'm also going to be tracing out a few acorns with the remaining stenciled area for the garland. And if you're new here and you enjoyed these creative ways of reusing Amazon packaging, I'd really appreciate it if you take a second to like the video. It really helps my channel grow. Thanks! So now that we have our pieces cut out, I'm going to be taking a hole puncher and I'm just going to punch a small hole at the top of my leaf and the top of my acorn. This is going to help us string everything on our garland. And to bring everything together, I'm using some jute twine from the Dollar Tree, and we're going to just string our leaves and our acorns onto the jute twine. It's an easy way to bring everything together for a simple fall garland. Now, let's add something else to our piece. What do you think? Which ribbon would you choose? Would you add blue or would you add white? Leave your pick in the comments below before you see which one I decide to use. So I ended up choosing the blue ribbon. I love the soft pop of color it added while still keeping the cozy cottage feel. Let me know if I made the right decision down in the comments below. Now for this ribbon, I am using 10-inch strips, and I'm going to cut a piece to go between each section of my garland. And I have to say, I really love this ribbon. I got it on Amazon and I use it all the time. It's so whimsical and it's such a great addition to different things. And now that our ribbon is prepped, we're just going to go ahead and tie that in between everything on our garland. I just love how this turns out. Draped across the fireplace, it adds the perfect touch of fall with soft colors, beautiful textures, and a handmade charm that's hard to beat. And to think this all started with an Amazon envelope. This is one of my favorite projects in today's challenge. For this one, we're going to be using an Amazon package, and I'm going to go ahead and just open up the package completely. We want to use the inside of this package. Now I'm going to be stenciling onto the back side of this piece. I'm using Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster, and I'm using a sponge as my applicator. The stencil I did purchase on Amazon. It is one of my favorite stencils to use all year round, and it's a self-adhesive stencil, and it's very easy to wash when you're done. And now that we applied our stencil, I'm just going to use that sponge and add my paint. And now that we've removed our stencil, I am going to take this to the sink and I'm going to wash this with warm soapy water, and then we'll go ahead and repeat the same step on the other side. Now, once we are done stenciling, I'm taking the extra paint on my little sponge here, and I'm just going to dab that around the outside of my stencil. This is just in case when we're gluing everything together that you might see something and we want it to look nice and complete. I'm just trimming off that little bit of extra paper too on the end. Now that we have a nice little rectangle here with a nice seam from where we cut everything, I'm going to take my edges here and I'm going to fold them in to the other side. So we're just going to lay those down so we have a nice little rectangle. I am going to try to glue this down. I started out by trying to use Titebond Quick and Thick glue, which I think would have worked out if I had a little more patience. But I didn't have that kind of patience today. So when I was doing this, I did grab my hot glue gun and I used it to just make sure everything was tacked down and stayed into place. Next, we're going to go ahead and fold this in half, and I'm going to use where the stencils kind of met when I did one on each side, and I'm going to use that for the bottom piece here. Now, once we have that folded in half, I am going to flip the side up underneath, and I'm going to add a little triangle, kind of like if you were making a little package. And I'm just going to fold a little triangle underneath on each side of this piece. And I'm going to open this up here just so you can kind of see what that looks like. Now I'm going to go ahead and grab my hot glue again, and I'm going to glue the sides together. And then we're going to repeat that on the other side. When we're done, we're left with this beautiful little pocket. You could do so many different things with this, but we are going to make a beautiful fall pumpkin. To fill our pouch, I'm using polyfill, and you can put as little or as much as you would like for your pumpkin. Now, once you are satisfied with your stuffing, I am going to start folding this down into place on the top. And we're going to seal this using some hot glue. I found that working in sections worked really well on sealing this, and you had a less of a chance of getting burnt. Now, full disclosure, I did burn myself a little bit with that hot glue. So please be careful. If you need to, wear those little thumb protectors. That helps out a bunch. Now, once you have everything sealed, we have this cute little pumpkin pouch here. Now, we still do need to figure out how we want to stand up our pumpkin. And because of the way that we glued it on the top, I found that that side was better for the bottom of the pumpkin, and using the spot where I folded the top corners looked better for the top of the pumpkin. So that is what I decided to do. And now I want to make some embellishments for my pumpkin. I'm starting out with this piece of lace panel. I got this from a thrift store about 1.5 years ago, so you've probably seen me use it in other videos. And I'm just cutting some strips of lace out to make a messy bow. And if you've never made a messy bow, it is super easy. So we're taking some strips of lace here. You could use lace, fabric, ribbon, whatever you have on hand. It's great for scrap ribbon. And I'm taking a little piece of jute twine, and you could use another thin ribbon if that's easier for you. And I am just going to make little X's over the top of that piece of jute. So we're just going to keep putting that lace over and over again over the top. Once we have our little flower bow looking thing made, go ahead and take that jute. We're just going to lift it up on each side of the bow and tie it in a knot. And that is all we do. You could go ahead and cut any extra ribbon off of there if you need to, or lace if to make it look the way you'd like. But that's as simple as it is. Now I am going to keep the string on here so it'll be easier for me to tie onto my pumpkin in a little bit. And for our second embellishment, I am taking a small piece of the Amazon package, cutting a circle out of it, and then we're going to make a little paper flower. Now, once you have your circle cut out, I'm just going to cut a spiral shape into that circle. So you're just going to cut that out, and it's going to look like a little spring. Next, I'm just going to coil the spring up. I'm going to start at the end, and I'm just going to coil it up with my hand here. And you kind of want it to be, depends on what you want your flower to look like. I found that if I had it too tight, it was not what I wanted it to look like. But if I did it just a little bit loose, I had this beautiful little flower. And once you have the spiral the way that you would like, I'm going to add a tiny bit of Tight Bond Quick and Thick glue, but you could use paper glue or Elmer's glue. That just happened to be what was on my craft table at the time. And I just added that to the circle, and then I just held it in place until I had a beautiful little flower. Now let's get everything put together. I'm using one of these little pegs that I found at the Dollar Tree. You get them for a 4-pack in the Crafter Square section. And then I'm going to take a little razor blade here, and I'm just going to cut a small hole at the top of our pumpkin. Once we get the hole to the size that we would like, I'm going to add a little bit of hot glue into the hole, and then I'm going to go ahead and stick that little peg right into the pumpkin. And now this pumpkin is starting to take shape. Let's go ahead and add our embellishments. Let's start out by adding this little bow, and we'll just go ahead and tie it to the stem. Once we have that tied into place, I am going to cut any of the excess twine off, and then I hot glue it just to make sure that it stays into place. Now to cover the twine in the center of our bow, I'm going to hot glue that little flower we made earlier right to the center. And wow, this pumpkin turned out absolutely stunning. If you enjoyed this pumpkin, leave a pumpkin emoji down in the comments below. Thank you! Well, I call this challenge a success. I still can't believe all the fall projects started with Amazon packaging. I hope today's video inspired you to look at everyday items in a whole new way before tossing them in the recycle bin. Now, I would love to hear from you. Which project was your favorite? And what everyday item should I challenge myself to craft with next? Leave your ideas in the comments below. And if you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one. Until next time, craft more, stress less.